Hello everyone, I'm Jiang Junbo. I'm going to give you an introduction of the Chinese language in general, which means in this video you can find if you are interested in this language, if it's useful for you, if learning the Chinese is worth it or not. I hope you can find the answer in this video. First of all, the Chinese is difficult. It's very difficult. Depend on your perspective, your point of view. In many charts, in many rankings, Chinese is often considered the most difficult language in the world. I think there are many reasons for that. For example, the people who do the rankings are from the West. They are not familiar with the Chinese language and they are not familiar with the Japanese. If you ask a Chinese people to make the ranking, I think maybe the language from the West is the most difficult. Chinese people won't consider the Korea or Japanese as difficult as the Western language. It's just no way, because there are similarity between the Japanese and Chinese. Anyway, let's get back to it, the difficult part. And then difficult part comes from the different part, because it's different, it's so different than the language you are familiar with, so you think it's very difficult. Well, that makes sense, right? It is different how? Well, the Western language is usually phonetic, or phonetic. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Anyway, it consists of sound. When you hear a sound, when you hear a word, you might as well take a bold guess how to spell. Okay, but it won't happen in the Chinese case. The Chinese language, the Chinese character came from the pictogram. The pictogram. We used to draw a draw to represent the things we want to express. And then sometimes it's more abstract, sometimes it's more realistic. For example, this is a mountain. The first part is really realistic. You basically draw a mountain and then put it in the turtle shell. And then sometimes it can be more abstract. This is not considered as very abstract. But anyway, it's called the pictogram. It's also fun to learn. For example, two characters, one is big and the other is small. They consist together, it's pointed, it's accurate. It's like this. So this is the big N and this is small n. So it follows some sort of the logic. So it's not completely impossible to learn. I know there are so many people, they refuse to learn Chinese character, but it's the only way, it's the good way, and it's the right way to do that. There are different ways to construct a Chinese character, but I will leave that in the future. Today I'm just talking about the theory. I write all these keynotes. If you are interested, you can make some kind of screenshot. I have many different topics about the Chinese. I have one keynote talk about the pinyin. I have one keynote talk about the traditional Chinese and the simplified Chinese. I have one keynote about Chinese characters. Chinese characters, a very unique language system which was based on writing. There are a great documentary called The History of All of Us. It's an American documentary, television series on history. It's a very good documentary. And I quote a sentence from the second episode of the first season. The invention of alphabet was one of the biggest steps in the history of writing. The Phoenician invented 22 syllables or letters that can be combined to represent almost any sound or in any language. So it's very accurate to say that because it uses almost, not all the sound in all the language, but the almost. My understanding is that you have to consider Chinese as an exception. Okay, if you live in China, if you using the Chinese phone, Chinese apps in your environment, in every screen or paper tissue you have access to, there's no way you're gonna see a lot of alphabet. We only use alphabet when it is alphabet. For example, if we want to say ABC, we use ABC. Other than that, we use Chinese characters. When people communicate with each other in Chinese, and then in China, people don't use alphabet. That's just it. And then the Chinese characters are more common than you think. Many NBA stars, they put some tattoo with the Chinese character. Sometimes it's good use, sometimes it's bad use. But I'm not going to get into that. It's easier when I teach online because I have the feedback, but it's more difficult when I try to do my best for this free lesson. I think I showed you this one before. Rome was not built in a day, so was the Chinese. Initially we write like this, and then we slowly we move forward and then we change the writings. Let's see an example. The first row represent the sun or the day. The second row represents the moon or the month. The third row represent the car or the vehicle. The last one represent the horse. Okay, that's how it was written 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago. And then it's called the traditional Chinese. We are not 100% abandon that, but either way. Sometimes we use it, but often for the Chinese speaker in the mainland China, the horse is written like this. It's not the same as this one. And the car is written like this, or the vehicle is written like this. It's not the same. See, but the moon and the sun is the same. It's the same. It's just different font. That's all. This is the Korean president. In China, we pronounce his name as Wen Zaiyin, but I don't know how to pronounce it in English. And then in the picture, he's giving a speech to Korean military. In the background, there are Chinese characters. And then this is the Korean civil law and the Korean commercial law. There are many, many Chinese characters in it. I never spent a single second learning Korean, but I can pronounce it. 互相计算期间，商业证券意义，确定期买卖。See, that's how common, that's how similar, that's a proof that the Chinese language, the Chinese characters is very, very important. Play a big role in the Korean or the Japanese or the country near the China. Okay, basically it's today's lesson. I have to make the lesson short in order to continue. I cannot post a video for an hour long. I'm going to do some decent editing. Okay, anyway, I think people get that. Okay, bye-bye.